United States. Now, some don't think that this is part of the United States, a place called California, which is also earthquake country. And I lived, in fact, through the Landers Big earthquakes, which were the largest quakes to strike California in the last 125 years. It got my attention. And one of the things that happens when an earthquake strikes, when the rattles, and you realize you're in for a ride, is that your priorities change, at least for a moment. And for me, that change often meant worrying how my parishioners had fared during the course of the earthquake, checking in on some of the most vulnerable, making sure that the gas had been turned off in church and in people's homes. There is a response and a reaction when a temblor hits. And I think maybe in all three of our lessons today, we have something of an earthquake. Something that reorients us and causes us to look at life with new priorities. They ask us questions. What is the nature of true freedom? What moral demands fall upon us when we make a choice to become disciples of Jesus? What are we doing with our lives? In our first gospel, in our first lesson from 1 Kings, we meet Shaphat Abel Meholah, and he is a wealthy landowner. And he has aspirations, I'm sure, for his son, Elisha. And Elisha has grown up in privilege. Probably Elisha had some ideas of what he wanted to do with his own life, maybe some vineyards. Maybe it was time to put in some vineyards, and build a larger house and settle in with his wife, or in those days, wives, who knows. Elisha had some plans for himself, son of Shaphat Abel Meholah. He is out plowing with 12 John Deere tractors. Lots of land if you need that many tractors. When along comes Elijah and casts the prophet's mantle around Elisha's shoulder and keeps right on walking. No explanation given whatsoever. Now remember that Elijah was despised by Ahaz and his consort Jezebel, and so by doing that, Elijah had just placed Elisha and Shaphat Abel Meholah right in the crosshairs of Ahaz's javelins. And he had not even discussed this with Shaphat. He casts his mantle and continues on down the road. Elisha was probably not prepared for Elijah's mantle. Elisha didn't have time to consider how to respond to this sudden call of God. And I wonder, how well are any of us ever prepared for the call of God in our lives? When our windows shake or the ground begins to tremble a bit, and we wonder what new duties we have been called to, what new challenges have been placed upon our shoulders. Some of you, I know, imagine that you are retired. But I'm not sure God really recognizes that category. I think God's call comes to us throughout our lives in many and various and sundry ways. Some circumstantial Elijah walks by and we feel a new weight of call upon our shoulders. And we have to take then unanticipated decisions for which we are not well prepared and for which we feel unready. St. Paul says to us today, our patron, for freedom, Christ has set us free. In light of Canada Day, on July 4th, that's a good message. For freedom, Christ has set us free. But genuine freedom is found through the acceptance of self-limiting choices. We limit ourselves when we are truly free in order that we might be useful to others and useful to God, who has named us by his name. We are therefore, when we claim our Christian freedom, a work in progress. Genuine freedom is not the absence of duty, neither is it some conformist template. It's something we have to work out. We have to work out the burdens of freedom and the duties that it imposes on us as citizens and as Christians. We have to try to prepare our hearts for that when the mantle falls. When I was a boy, I had a beagle named Gunner. I lived in the suburbs. Gunner was a hunting dog. I had no business having a hunting dog named Gunner. In fact, Gunner spoiled me for all other dogs the rest of my life because I felt such guilt that I didn't really exercise him as much as he needed exercise. But my father had grown up handling guns and hunting in Pennsylvania, and he thought that it was important for a young man to learn how to handle guns and hunt, and so he gave me Gunner. And Gunner and I would go out handling guns and hunting now and again. And whenever we got out into the woods, Gunner would put his nose to the ground. I let him off the leash, and he would take off, and no amount of calling him back did any good at all, because he had set his nose to the ground, he caught the scent, and he invariably flushed out a rabbit. I won't tell you what happened next. He set his nose to the scent. I think both Elijah and Jesus were what psychologists might today call well-differentiated people. They understood the differences between their own responsibilities and the responsibilities of others. And so once Elijah cast his mantle, he kept right on walking down Cardo, and he didn't try and micromanage Elisha's decisions, Elisha's choices. Elisha was going to have to work that out on his own, and Elisha did. He stopped the John Deere tractors, slaughtered the oxen, burnt the yokes, fed the people, and I just wonder what kind of expression came over Shaphat Abel Mehola's face at about that juncture. That was a considerable consumption of economic resources that his son had just consigned, whilst putting him in the middle of the javelins. And when mantles fall on us as individuals or on us as a parish, we will often find that considerable investment is required from each one of us. Perhaps our Elijah will not mess with our business. It is our business to determine the contours of how we respond to the mantle of God. But there will be something required of us. Christ, like Gunner, set his nose like flint to go to Jerusalem, despite all of his disciples trying to talk him out of such an extremely dangerous move. All their lives are going to be in danger in Jerusalem, and they knew it. Christ set his face like flint to Jerusalem. When they go to Samaritan country, the Samaritans, who do not like Jerusalemites at all, refuse hospitality. And the sons of thunder, they earned their names. James and John said, "Lord, should we call down fire on the Samaritans?" And Jesus rebukes them. There is no freedom in matching your emotional response to your perceived slights and injuries. There is no freedom in that way of life at all. So Jesus continues, having rebuked his disciples, sons of thunder, down the road, and someone comes to him, a romantic fellow, I imagine, and says, "Lord, I will follow you wherever you go. I feel spiritual today. You seem like a spiritual man. I'll follow you wherever you go." And Jesus indicates that following God is neither romantic nor particularly sentimental. And he says to the man, your foxes have holes and birds have nests. You'd have a rock for a pillow tonight. How's that sound? We don't hear the response, but the guy doesn't follow. Later, Jesus calls a couple of people, follow me. And they say, yes, absolutely, when it's a little more convenient. Maybe a few years hence. Right now, I've got family obligations. I have things to do. And Jesus said, in a way that we were always instructed to say in pastoral classes in seminary, let the dead bury their own dead. You follow me. It's a very harsh thing to say. You follow me. Let the dead bury their own dead. Have you read Flannery O'Connor? Terrific writer. Flannery O'Connor once said, the Christianity of following Jesus has nothing to do with our own sweet concoction. We would like a spiritual life, and Jesus would like us to follow in ways that are much more demanding and difficult. The yoke of slavery comes to us in many forms. It can come to us in our captivity to emotion or sentiment or desire for security or from over-enmeshment in family systems. It can come to us when we desire too much to remain comfortable in this world. Here's a quote from an author you may recognize, Somerset Maugham. Those who value security above freedom will lose their freedom, and having lost their freedom, they will lose their security also. Because freedom is tied to duty. It is tied to catching the divine scent and following it in difficult places, wherever God may lead. Today a mantle has fallen upon you, the windows have shaken, not only upon you as individuals, but also upon this parish. Just as Shaphat wondered at his improvident son, there will be substantial financial expenditure demanded of us if we are to embody Christ as we may in our generation and in this place. It will not always be easy. It will not always lead to sweet emotions and good sentiments. We must decide whether we want to be captive to security and comfort, or if we will put our nose to the scent at hand. We must decide not to call down fire on every other person who disagrees with us, inside the church or outside the church. That is not the way of genuine freedom. Do not submit again to the yoke of that kind of slavery, says Jesus. So the time is now, and you are here, and an earthquake has shaken our windows just a bit. Does God have your attention? What for you is the opposite of inertia? What duty does freedom lay on you? From what security and comfort or enmeshment must you walk away from? Some self-differentiated, circumstantial Elijah has waltzed by and thrown a mantle on all of us today and continued down Cardo without a second thought. We are left with decisions that we didn't anticipate and for which we are ill-prepared to make. But if you can catch the divine scent and set your face like flint, I promise you, you will find new adventure. Amen. Amen.